Well, CNN is out with some devastating news for Trump today, which of course is great news for the rest of us. And when I say devastating, I mean really, really devastating. And I don't mean devastating in the normal sense, like he's underwater in the polls, like his disapproval numbers are higher than his approval numbers, because that's always been the case. So this is something new. It's something I predicted would happen a long time ago if they would just let Trump be Trump, which they have now done. And it's happening, and it's going to kill them in November. Several new polls just out this week are showing Trump's support among Republicans and right leaning independents plummeting like a rock. But why would this be happening? Why would this be happening now? Why would his coalition be splintering just 100 days before the election? Let me think. It couldn't be because he spent months trying to keep the Epstein files buried. Nah, it couldn't be that. They don't care about that. And it couldn't be that after promising he would end all wars and start no new wars, that he has ended no wars and has started a very dangerous new war in the heart of the Middle East. A war that, according to his supporters, by the way, if Biden had started, would lead to Armageddon. So, no, it couldn't be that. Let me think. Could it be because that war has caused gas prices to skyrocket? Nah, they only care about prices if a Democrat's president. So, couldn't be that. Oh, wait, I know. Maybe millions of Republicans just woke up one morning 5 weeks ago with a sudden case of Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah, that's it, Ticket.
Yeah, it's contagious, right? But whatever it was, something has changed. A majority of the latest national polls out now show Trump's approval rating in the 30s, not the 40s anymore. It's in the 30s by nearly 60% of the most recent polls. And it's showing his support falling even among Republicans. And it's not falling just a little bit, it's falling a lot. It's falling big time, big time. It's falling bigly, you might say. Some polls show up to a 10% drop in Republican support in the last 5 weeks. Quinnipiac shows the president's support has plummeted to 76% among Republicans from 85% 5 weeks ago, and that is huge. Just keep this in mind. In the 2024 election, Trump won 94% of the Republican vote. 94%. And he won the popular vote by just a little over 1.5%. He needs every single Republican to come out and vote. And he's not going to get it this time. They're not going to come out. They're not going to come out. They're discouraged. They're not happy. And he's, imagine going from 94% to 76%, and you barely squeaked it out by 1.5% last time. That you're not going to have anywhere close to that 1.5% margin this time. That's what these polls are showing. And the latest AP NORC poll finds that Republican approval of Trump's handling of Iran has fallen from 71% to 61%. That's a 10-point drop. But that's not the worst of it. Check out this article from CNN. And I have a couple of articles actually, so it's going to be some good stuff to get through. From bad to worse for Trump and his base. This is a big one, very important article here. Republicans are starting to fret about their base's lack of enthusiasm ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Those voters were already disproportionately less likely to vote in the elections not featuring Donald Trump. And now the GOP has to contend with the president being more unpopular than ever. So not only will Trump not be running, he won't be on the ballot anywhere. Thank God. Uh, but he's more unpopular than ever. So he is going to have very little draw compared to what he's had in the past. A new CNN poll drives home the problem. Large portions of Trump's base are feeling disillusioned over more than a few of his choices lately. Across a bevy of questions on subjects ranging from the economy to Iran to Trump's self-enrichment and efforts to make over Washington, large percentages of Republicans and GOP-leaning independents are registering discontent, as in 30, 40, and 50% or more. That's big. Overall, the CNN poll shows 30% of Republicans and GOP leaning independents disapprove of Trump. That's huge. In the 2024 election, only 6% voted against Trump. Now we have 30% leaning against Trump. That's he ain't going to get that tiny 6% margin this time. I will tell you that. That number is rather high in and of itself, but it actually might undersell the level of disillusionment on some fronts. Now, I have always said if all Americans could see the same thing and get the same information, we would be far more likely to agree with each other than we are now. And I use the example of a movie I went to years, like 30 years ago, and in New York, in Manhattan. And I remember sitting in the audience, a very mixed audience, lots of different races, people from different countries, because in Manhattan, there's people from literally every country on earth. And you go to a movie theater and they're in there, they're in the theater with you. So people with all kinds of cultural backgrounds and economic backgrounds and race backgrounds, everything that could be different was different in that theater. And I remember at the end, when they finally got the bad guy, everybody in the theater erupted in applause. We all agreed, yeah, that's the bad guy and you got to get him. That's because we all saw the same story. We had the same set of facts. And what's going on today is you have half the country getting a whole different set of facts, you have half the country getting fiction and the other half of the country getting probably 80 or 90% fact. Okay. So I'm not saying it's perfect on our side either, but it's far better and it's far more, truthful than it is on their side. Okay. All right. So the big one, the economy, without question, the most troubling numbers for Trump and the GOP concern the economy. Not only is the economy generally voters' biggest concern, it also features Trump's worst numbers. I mean, this is huge, and they're going. What we're going to look at now are numbers among Republicans and GOP leaning independents. Okay, so this is not the electorate at large. This is the Republican segment of it. All right, 64% of basically Republican voters say high gas prices have caused at least a moderate hardship for them. They're noticing. Trump can't hide that. Can't hide that, can he? But behind lies and PR people and Caroline Levitt coming out every day and lying through her teeth, and all the cabinet officers lying through their teeth. Through their teeth. I just said teeth. Lying through their teeth. That's plural already. Okay. But yeah, so lies don't cover that up. They can't cover up high gas prices. 56% say the economy is very or somewhat poor. That's 56% of Republicans. 56% say Trump hasn't gone far enough to reduce the price of everyday goods, which they notice every time he spends time doing cockamamie BS like this. What he wrote yesterday morning, look at this, about poor Anthony Fauci. Many more people died of COVID under the Biden administration than under the Trump administration. Operation Warp Speed was a spectacular success. No, it wasn't. In fact, many say one of the most successful things ever done by an American president. It's like crazy. And then he says this, I overrode Fauci on this. His ideas were crazy. So you have the man who literally suggested people drinking bleach because he just discovered, he found out from somebody who knew that bleach kills germs. He literally sat there in that press conference and asked, I forget that woman's name, but the doctor, she was the head of medical something in the US government. And he said, don't you think that the bleach kills the germs, right? Maybe we could do that. And she looked horrified. And he's calling Fauci crazy. People are noticing. People are literally noticing this stuff. But, all these past grievances that he spends all his time on, every time he does that, it just shouts out to people, hey, he ain't spending time on your finances. He's not working on your economy. He's not putting things back together. He can't get over these personal grievances. And it shouts out to all of us. He's far more concerned with that and personal slights and insults that he's had to suffer through than he is to fixing the economy. But you know what? let him not spend time on it because he'll turn it into an even worse disaster. The more he can be distracted by these other things, as far as I'm concerned, the better. All right, 56% disapprove on his performance on gas prices, which is kind of a scary number. I mean, or 44% of the people saying, yeah, he's doing a good job on gas prices, or 44% of Republicans. I mean, is this the dumbest party you've ever seen? Literally, a large portion of Republicans don't disapprove of his performance on gas, which is now $4 a gallon. And where I am, it started off at $2.67 a gallon when he came into office. So I don't know. But they don't see a problem there. That's, probably 40% of Republicans don't see a problem. All right, 51% say Trump doesn't have a clear plan on gas prices. That's obviously true. And for that many Republicans to notice, does not bode well for them. 50% say Trump's policies haven't improved economic conditions. Duh. With 31% saying his policies have actually made things worse. Only 31% of Republicans can detect that his policies have made things worse, but better than 10%, right? 47% disapprove of his handling of inflation. Okay. So they have a lot of gripes about the economy and his handling of it. Iran, same thing. 64% think a long term war with Iran is likely, of course. 45% say the toll of the war in lives and money hasn't been worth it. I'm glad to see a number that's over 10% on any of these. 45% say Trump doesn't have a clear plan for Iran. 40% disapprove of his overall handling of it. Wow. I mean, these numbers are high in that they will dissuade a percentage of Republican voters not to come out, and ones who do come out, fewer will vote for the Republican candidates. So that's good. But honestly, I'm just shaking my head. 40% disapprove of his overall handling of Iran. Does that literally mean 60% of Republicans think he's doing a good job? Are there that many brain? Okay, I won't ask. I will look stupid for asking, I know. All right. 39% say his decisions about military action in Iran have hurt the U.S. Good job, geniuses. Okay, his priorities. The poll shows many members of Trump's base simply don't like what he's focused on, including his personal finances and projects like the White House ballroom and Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, which no longer reflects, apparently. Among these groups, again, we're talking about Republican voters, 45% say 45% say Trump isn't in touch with the problems ordinary Americans face in their daily lives, up from 34%. Listen, if this was Joe Biden, these numbers would be over 100%. Like 110% Republicans would say Biden is not in touch with our problems. Okay, 39% say he hasn't paid enough attention to the country's most important problems. That's up from 25% in January. So those numbers are getting worse for him. Around 3 in 10 say he's gone too far in changing institutions like the Smithsonian and the Kennedy Center, which Trump put his name on before a judge removed it, embarrassingly. His remodeling of the White House, another Washington landmark. Okay, so, 30% of Republicans don't like that. That's a pretty significant number for people from his party to not like those things he's doing. 30% say Trump doesn't put the good of the country over his personal gain. I'm happy that any Republican has noticed that. So 30% is pretty good. 26% say they're angry or dissatisfied about the ballroom and the reflecting pool. Okay, well, that's good. So a lot of people are noticing the same things we are. These numbers might reflect just the number of people who expose themselves to media outside of the MAGAverse and have actually heard of these things and you know heard some truth about what's going on there. All right, so anyway, that is that with that. Now, let's look at this. Voters favor Democrats by an 8-point margin heading into the midterms. So, this is very good news, too. I say all that as a former lifelong Republican. And I know I got to quit saying lifelong. You can't really say lifelong if you're not anymore. So, it's not for my whole life. But it was lifelong up until 2016 when I couldn't vote for Trump. All right, less than 100 days before the midterms, Democrats lead Republicans on the generic ballot by 8 points among registered voters. And they say that I think it had to be the generic ballot had to have Democrats ahead, I think by 6 or 7 points to overcome the advantage Republicans have gotten from all their gerrymandering. So this is well ahead of what they need for that. I really have a feeling this number is a little low. I have a feeling it's underestimated, but whatever. Anyway, it's a good number. It's a good number. So eight Democrats leading Republicans by 8 points on the generic ballot. Uh, Democrats also continue to hold a significant advantage in voter enthusiasm. That is great news, and have a 20-point advantage in preferences among those who say they are extremely motivated to vote, which is great. More Americans say the country would be better off, 38%, than worse off, 33%, if Democrats were to take control of Congress, and 29% say it doesn't matter and who cares. All right. So that is just some more detail. I just wanted to share that main point with you. This is the generic congressional vote on the Real Clear Politics average of polls. They're putting it right now at Democrats ahead by 5.4%. So a little less than it has been. I've seen this poll up to 7 or so%. The latest poll from CNN has Democrats ahead by 8%, and that is obviously what CNN was reporting on in that last article. Okay, CNN poll: Americans doubt Trump is paying enough attention to the country's most important problems. Yeah. Personal grievances, that comes first. A record high 73% of US adults say the president, Donald Trump, hasn't paid enough attention to the country's most important problems. With just 27% saying he has the right priorities. That's pretty bad. Within his own party, his approval rating has hit a new low at 78%, and just 19% of Republicans say they're enthusiastic about the rest of his second term. That's down from 38% last spring. So he's lost half of the number of Republicans who were enthusiastic about the remainder of his term. That's pretty huge. The 78% approval rating among Republicans, we look at that and go, how in the world could 78% of any group approve of this president? But that is his political party. These are the people from the president's party, at least the party he co-opted and turned into his party. And but here's the important thing: it took 94% of Republicans in 2024 to barely push him over the top and give him a squeaky win in that election. He did not win by the landslide, he tells people. It was barely 1.5% that he won by. So, and that's when he had 94% support from his party. Now he only has 78% support. It doesn't mean it's going to be a direct correlation between this and the number of, what percentages Republicans vote in. But it will definitely have an effect on how many Republicans come out. Their enthusiasm is low. They're discouraged. They're not happy with what they've seen. So they're not motivated to come out. But we're motivated because we got to save the country. They don't see that the country is on fire. If they did, they might get motivated to come out and vote for some Democrats. At least do it for a couple of terms, and get this MAGA crowd out of there. All right, Trump sees his lowest numbers on a trio of interconnected issues. Just 28% approve of his handling of the situation in Iran, 25% on inflation, and 21% on gas prices, with significant pockets of disapproval even among his supporters. So these numbers are for all voters, not just Republicans. With an increasing majority of Americans anticipating a long military conflict, only about one quarter think Trump has a clear plan for handling the situation, down from 40% at the start of the war. And 62% now say Trump is not an effective world leader, up from 54% who felt that way early in his second term. Just one quarter now say the war has been worth the toll in American lives and dollars, with younger Americans particularly skeptical. And I got to give a hand to younger Americans. I used to think they were all like derelicts and no good, but you guys are really coming out and doing the right thing and taking the right position on these really important issues. So I'm glad you're eligible to vote this time. Okay, on the most tangible economic fallouts of the conflict in Iran, 74% of Americans say rising gas prices have caused them at least some hardship, up from 63% in March. Kind of hard to hide it, with just one quarter believing the president has a plan to address the issue. And 71% say Trump hasn't gone far enough in trying to reduce the price of everyday goods, which is quite obvious, up from 58% a year ago. Following two recent deadly ICE shootings, Americans say by a 20-point margin that the agency is making cities less, not more safe. And amid the how do you say this? Cyclospora outbreak, that virus, and a surge in measles cases, they say by a 34-point margin that changes to health agencies like the FDA and the CDC are leaving the public less, not more safe. I can't even tell you, I'm so glad to see these numbers because I watch these stories in the, solitude of my own home, and I feel like maybe I'm the only one noticing, you know? But for Americans to be against what ICE is doing by a 20-point margin, that's huge. And I'm very happy to see that. I didn't even know they were paying that much attention to these things. And same about these health agencies. A 34% margin are saying these changes are making the public less safe. I literally didn't think Americans would notice until, people just started dropping dead like flies. But fortunately, they're noticing a little sooner than that, which I'm glad to see. More than 6 in 10 say Trump has gone too far in pursuing his personal business interests while serving as president. I'm glad to see people are noticing that as well. It's just hard to know in this day with the internet and all the multiplicity of channels and methods by which people can get news. It's really hard to have a good handle on what people are hearing and what they're knowing. Back in the old days when we had three networks and they all three pretty much reported the same thing, and that always pretty much corresponded with your daily local newspaper, we at least knew what people were being told, so we could have a pretty good idea what they were thinking. But it's just everything's so dispersed today. It's like I feel like I don't know what they're seeing. Like you can be seeing one thing and a million other people could be seeing, you know, 1,000 different things. Do people even realize how many channels there are on YouTube? Like millions of channels. You can watch your set of channels and you can see a few 100,000 people watching all the videos and think, yeah, that's what everybody's watching. But another person next door to you in the same neighborhood could be watching a whole set of different channels and they've never even heard of your channels and you've never heard of theirs. That's how big it all is. It's like crazy. But it does make it a little hard to know exactly what people are hearing. And it makes it hard to keep your hand on the pulse of the people. All right, these efforts, these things he's doing, these personal monuments he's trying to build to himself in Washington, they aren't even popular among the president's base. Only 43% of Republicans say they feel positively about Trump's construction projects, with 35% saying the projects don't matter to them. So I'm amazed and very happy by that. Okay. What is next? Okay, here, I wanted to show you this. The Real Clear Politics polling average for the most recent polls. This is what's significant. I put these numbers in blue. They're all in the 30s. He's never had this many polls on this first page of the most recent polls in the 30s for his approval rating. I remember when his approval rating first dipped into the 30s a while back, and everybody's like, whoa, it got to the 30s. But then it came back up. It was in the 40s for a long time. Look at this. All of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 14. That's 57%. 57% of the most recent polls have his approval rating in the 30s. And that hasn't happened in a long time. Let's look back at let's see. Okay, this is the same thing, but this is back in, say, November. Okay. Now, look, you have this whole page, and there's only four. in the 30s. It goes from this covers about a month, from October 27th to November 20th. All right. That's about a month. And in a month, he had only 4 polls where his approval rating was in the 30s. Today, this covers a couple of weeks, and 8 of them out of 2 weeks are in the 30s. So that is pretty huge, you know. All right. Well, that's the story. Americans are noticing what those of us who pay close attention have always known, and they are as disapproving of it as we are for the most part. And that's why the free press is so important, because that's how we all know what's going on. And that's why Trump has done everything in his power to attack the press and beat them into submission. When you know people are going to hate everything you do, it makes sense to try to gerrymander and rig the vote. And it makes sense to try to shut down the free press, right? Big part of this battle is taking place online and in social media. So if you think you can't do anything to help, believe me, you can do more now than you ever could have in the past. So just get in the conversation, get online, get in the conversation, and just keep sharing the truth with people. All right. That's it for me. I'm Jonathan Burton. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you soon. Take care.